Today, I'm going to show you how to build this beginner's budget-friendly workbench using only simple tools and techniques. I'm Rachel Barros, and this is Gearhead Diva. It's about time to retire this plastic children's crafts table that I've been using as a workbench. Yeah, those of you that have stuck with me through my previous projects, well, we always know we kind of start here, and by the time I start cutting and hammering, we end up here, and that's always led to some artistic cuts. So, being that it is a beginner's budget workbench, all the material that you see behind me, you can get for less than $100. Yeah, you can actually have a workbench for less than $100. And we have a few more rules, being that we're trying to stay within the beginner status. So this is the perfect project if you've never really done much cutting with wood. Heck, you've barely screwed anything together. You're gonna be able to handle this. So come on, let's check out my fine wood. This is all you're gonna need to build this workbench, and it's not very many things. So if you look at the piece of plywood board here, I'm gonna try and get the design that's in my head and kind of toss it up on there. So for my table, I'm gonna make it 5 feet long by 2 feet wide and then 3 feet high. And that's 36 inches. And I find that that's kind of the perfect height to be able to work sitting down on it as well as standing up. So it's gonna be way more versatile than this table. The workbench is only gonna need one piece of plywood, and that's gonna cover your tabletop as well as your shelf underneath. So I know what you're thinking. You're like, wait a minute, there are 2 pieces of plywood here. And that's because I had to cut it at the store in order to fit it in the car. And that was kind of another mini rule. The size of the materials have to fit in an average size SUV. And a lot of the stores will happily cut it for you. Even if you were to walk in with all your measurements, they can get all that cut. So you don't have to do any of that. Come home, assemble it. But we're gonna be doing some cutting today. So 1 sheet of 3/8 inch plywood, very sturdy, great for banging on, and 4x4s and 2x4s. These casters are totally optional, and I decided to add them to my build because I need my bench to be totally mobile, especially in a space like this. They're all industrial strength, and they have locks on them, so I don't have to worry about the table moving around when I'm trying to cut and hammer things. Each one of these is gonna add $10 per caster to your build cost. So we're looking at about an extra $40 right here, and only you can make that call. We're now at the final rule for our beginner's budget workbench, and it has to do with tools. Because you've all seen those workbench designs that are like, wow, look, this is super cheap. And you get all excited, and then the first thing they do is like bust out 5 different tools. And you're like, wait a minute, you start doing the math in your head. It's like, oh, so I gotta spend like a couple $1,000s in tools just to build my super cheap budget table? So for this rule, when we're on rule, I don't know, like 20th, it seems like there's been a lot of rules. So we'll just call this like rule number 20. We have to be able to build this table with a basic power tool. To build this, I think I'm gonna stick with the circular saw, and my challenge to myself is to only use this one tool to build the entire table. So let's see how I do. I'm starting with the lengths of the workbench, and they're gonna be cut at 57 inches. And I know the workbench is 60 inches total, but I have to account for the width of the end pieces, and that's gonna add an additional 3 inches. Total, I'm gonna need 4 pieces, 2 for the workbench top, and then 2 for the bottom shelf. So I have the lengths all cut up, and you can see them laying right here. We have 4 of them, and I figured with their remnants, the unused pieces, I'm going to use these as the braces. So the brace is what's going to be in the middle to help support that plywood board over there. And they're going to be 21 inches. I measured up and now I'm cutting those end pieces for the workbench. It's those 2-foot pieces that go on either end, and I'm going to need 4 of them. And now for the legs. This is the last piece we're going to need to be able to build the frame of our workbench. Now I went ahead and measured out 30 3/8 inches because that's taking into account the height of the casters as well as the thickness of the plywood back here. Now normally for a 4x4 I'd be using a miter saw, but I'm really trying to stick to the 1-tool rule for you guys. So now it's time to assemble it. So I kind of have everything generally laid out. You see the legs. This is actually the tabletop. Yeah, I like to work backwards, especially when you have a level floor in your garage or the driveway. This helps take a lot of the guesswork out, and having a speed square, really inexpensive, also helps you get everything squared up. So come on. Ready to drill some pilot holes, and then screw everything in with a 2.5-inch screw. This is just a general construction screw that you can get. Now it's time for some legs. So let's see here. Using the floor to help me out a bit. I'm going to use a couple clamps just to get it almost there. Let's see how that's looking. That is pretty perfect, but just in case, 2 clamping powers. I was gonna say we only get 1 shot at this, but you don't. You can just screw and unscrew at will, so don't worry about it. Let's see how that looks. Perfecto! So for all these legs, I'm just gonna use 1 screw for the time being, and then put in additional screws so that way it's totally sturdy. With 1 screw in, these legs are still a little bit wobbly, and that's actually an advantage because now we can start to really fine-tune our squaring. So if you take a look behind you, you already see that this leg here is pretty sturdy, and you see a shim coming out of it because these surfaces are not always 100% straight, so sometimes you may need to lean it in or lean it out in this case. So right here, and I'll even turn this for you guys, it is almost there. I just have to bring it in. But if I bring it in such that it touches the surface of this, well, now we're way out. So it needs to be about there. And I'm just going to use the help of a shim to give me the space I need. So let's see what that looks like. And got to be careful not to place this on top of the shim. Place it back here. And that's about right. So all I'm going to do is drive another screw in here and then repeat on this side with 2 screws going in here. Now I'm marking locations for my support beams, or braces as I call them. And because we have a 60-inch length table, I figured, okay, smack in the middle at 30 inches. So I measured them at 15, 30, and 45. All right, more drilling. Well, I need to swap batteries. And not only that, come on, you gotta move. We gotta put the center one in. Come on, come on. You're all in the way. All right, it looks like we are done. The top portion of our workbench, braces are in, legs complete. So all we have to do is just repeat this portion on the bottom of our table. Yeah, which is gonna be a lot faster because the legs are already in place and we're just basically screwing the rest of the frame onto the legs. So, all right, come on. Don't just stand there, come on, help me. We gotta flip this thing over. Way again, come on. Listen, here's a drill. Get to work, start screwing these in. With our frame complete and it happens to be right side up, we might as well slap on a tabletop on this thing. Now, this tabletop is 4 feet wide here, so I'm gonna chop it in half, and that should give us our top piece as well as our shelf piece on the bottom. My tabletop is freshly cut, and I went ahead and drilled a couple pilot holes here for us to start screwing it down. Once this side of the table gets used and abused, all I have to do is unscrew it, flip it over, and use the other side. All right, for our shelving half now, I went ahead and notched out with a magic marker where the legs are gonna go. And for me, it ended up being about 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. So a perfect square all the way around. And these are the last cuts that we're gonna make. Slide in our bottom shelf here, get a good test fit before nailing it down or screwing it down. Oh, I'm stuck. The final step for me is just putting in these casters. And again, they're totally optional, and without them, this table is gonna run you less than $100. But for me, it's well worth the money to be able to roll it out of the way when it's in the way. guys, we are finished, and well, I know I'm the one who did pretty much all the cutting and the drilling, but I say we because I felt your good vibes putting this table together. So I think I did a pretty good job following all the rules. Rule number one, of course, this is a beginner's budget workbench. So for beginners, we use only basic 2x4s, 4x4s, and a single sheet of plywood. Now all this fits in your average size SUV, and if you have any trouble like I did, you can always have the store cut it down for you. And secondly, of course, is the other important B, which is our budget. So this entire table ran me less than $100, including the screws, all the wood that you see here, except the casters. If you want your table to roll, look at that, on a roll, then casters are gonna run you about $10 each. But for me, it was well worth it because now I can just move this table anywhere I want. And finally, our final rule is the tool rule. Yeah, the tool rule. So, no using a plethora of cutting tools to make this. I managed to build this entire thing with just the circular saw. Yeah, cut everything, even those 4x4s. So the nice thing with this table, I'm super excited because now, depending on the journey that my projects take and your projects take, you can now customize it unique to you. So I'm already thinking about what I'm gonna add to it. I don't know, what do you guys think? Wow, I got a lot of cleaning to do. Check out this mess. There is sawdust everywhere. There's sawdust in my hair, all over me, all over you guys. So come on, get out of here. I'm gonna clean this up because tomorrow I'm gonna make an entirely new mess with the next project. I'm Rachel de Barros, and you've been watching Gearhead Diva.